Well guys, after over a week or so since I've last did UFL, I am back for the 2022 UFL season. As after doing the last season, I said I wasn't going to do the next season until I updated the logos. I actually did quite a bit of logo updates, but unfortunately, over half the team still haven't gotten their logos updated. And I was just in such a good mood to continue on with doing UFL, I decided, screw it, I'm going to continue on and such. Now, this one took a bit longer in 2021 because I was busy with other things, but I just finished it. So now to recap the 2022 season. So we take a look at the standings in 2022 in the Eastern Midwest. The Minnesota Tundra once again won the Eastern Midwest. However, they struggled very early on in the year with their new rookie, their quarterback. Their new quarterback that they got from 2020. But then, after the slow start, they turned around to win all their 9 remaining games to clinch the division at 12-4. The Detroit Drivers, after they got rid of their QB they drafted back in 2019, they got a new QB. And the team started off very slow at first, and they just stayed around 500. But then they wrapped up the end of the year by going a surprise 10-6, which I think is the best record in franchise history, as they made the playoffs. And the Indiana Brewers once again played about how they did last year. Terrible offense, but a really good defense. They went 9-7 once again, but not enough to make the playoffs this time. And the St. Louis Rockets, with their new rookie #1 overall pick QB, started off not good at first. Then near the middle of the year, they looked really good, and they were 5-6 at one point. Looked like maybe they can contend for a playoff spot. But then their QB shit the bed the final 5 weeks of the year, and they finished 5-11. But hey, better that than going 0-16. That's a big improvement. You gotta hope they can continue that momentum up. Then in the Eastern Gulf, the Miami Zombies once again won the division as, oh my god, their quarterback had 51 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He threw like 35 touchdowns before he threw a pick. He was on the mark this year. As the Zombies once again had one of the league's best offenses. They went 12-4. They actually lost their final 2 games, which was an embarrassment because they had a chance to still get the #1 seed, and they blew it. The Memphis Warhawks once again went 8-8. This time they had to make another comeback to save it. The Tampa Bay Cyclones, they actually had a good start to the year. It looked like they were going to contend for a playoff spot, but then they crapped the bed near the end of the year. They lost their final 3 games to finish 7-9 in a losing season. And the Houston Bullets, my goodness, they're wasting the talent of their QB as they started off the year 0-11 before they finally won their first game. My gosh, they just could not stop choking games that they should have won as they finished 2-14. Then the Eastern Atlantic, the Buffalo Terriers, who were 11-5 last year, regressed big time in the middle of the year. The whole division struggled as they went 8-8, and that was just enough to make the playoffs as a division winner. And then the Washington Colts, they start off the year 4-1, but their quarterback from 2017 was so horrible, he threw 33 interceptions. He threw double the interceptions and touchdowns. And by the way, that was a big problem for a lot of QBs this year. Interceptions were massively up this year. It wasn't a lot of sacks defenders were getting. It was interceptions this time around. As they improved to 8-8, but they really didn't play that much better than last year. The Pittsburgh Titans had a big regression year as they regressed to 7-9. They barely made 7-9 after they went 10-6 last year. And the Baltimore Charm, once again, went 6-10, but no improvement. They just kept like blowing out victories, but then they lost blowouts as well. It was like really weird. Then the Eastern Pacific, the Oakland Magic, the defending champions from last year. They lost their first game in a blowout, but then the unbelievable happened. They won all of their remaining games with the league's #1 defense. They allowed 152 points a season. They allowed less than 10 points a game. They had the 3rd best offense too. One of the best teams probably ever in UFL history. As they went 15-1 and easily clinched the title advantage in the playoffs. This is the first time they ever had title advantage, and this is the first time that the Eastern Conference had the title advantage since 2018. The Utah Eagles, they had an up and down year. They kept staying around 500, but they finished 9-7 and actually made the playoffs for the first time since 2018. The Anaheim Rockies struggled all years. They went 7-9, and the Seattle Cougars really regressed. They went 5-11, and they almost lost every home game. Then the Western Conference, the Western Midwest. the Kansas Engineers, who won the division last year, remember, at 500 record, they improved to 10-6 to clinch the division with winning record. The Cincinnati Wolves start off the year 4-0, then they bombed out after that, and they stayed around 500, and they finished 9-7. The Green Bay Comets improved record-wise, but not really much change. They went 7-9. And the Canton Greats went 5-11 with their new rookie quarterback. The Western Golf, the number one team last year, the New Orleans Sharks, regressed a bit as their defense wasn't as awesome as it was last year, as they went to 12-4. The Columbia Marines, they didn't play it good this year at all. They've regressed from last year, as their quarterback did not really play good. They went 11-5 on a massive run near the end of the year like they did last year, but yeah, the team's starting to struggle a bit. The Atlanta Suns, oh boy, they start off the year 5-3, and they were actually in the wild card round at the season end of the day at that point in the year. And they wanted to lose all the remaining games but one, the final game of the year, to finish 6-10. What a disappointment. I thought they were going to maybe make a playoff push. And the Jackson Boxers suck. They barely scored 100 points. Their offense is horrendous. They are like the worst team in the league. And that's saying something, going 1-15, because they're not the only one that did that. Then, the Philadelphia Pythons continue their dominance as they improved to 12-3-1 from last year, although their quarterback play was not as good as last year. The New York Kings, who were the runner-ups for the UFL title last year, they actually struggled early on in the year, and their quarterback did not play good all this year. Like I said, the quarterback play was not that good this year, but near the end of the year, just like Columbia, they massively turned it around, and they wanted to win all the remaining games to get to 12-4, but this time had to be a wild-card team. The Montreal Quebecs, remember 2 years ago they were 0-15-1, and this year they went 7-8-1. They looked pretty solid too. They actually beat Philadelphia in one of the games, and they gave them a tie too, so they actually beat Philadelphia this year. So they're looking really good, but 7-8-1, still no playoff appearance. And the Boston Cruisers will continue to regress. They fell all the way down to 1-15 as nothing's going right for that offense. Then the Lubbock Pilots. Early on in the year, they looked really good. They were 9-1, despite the fact that their quarterback was horrible. They were winning games in despite of him. But then the team fell off at the end of the year as they went from 9-1 to 11-5. Nothing right there, but it was still enough to clinch the division. And, the Los Angeles Stars with one of the league's best defenses. Actually, I think it's the second best defense in the league behind only Oakland. They were really good all year. They went 11-5, but they actually missed the playoffs to the tiebreaker over Columbia. You can't make it up. 11-5 and still no playoff berth as they missed it. Very unfortunate. And the Phoenix Dust Devils, they struggled all year, but early on in the year, then near the end part of the year, they massively turned around. They actually looked pretty good, but they went 8-8 for a second year in a row and missed the playoffs. And the Denver Talons once again sucked. Nothing's going right for them as they finished 2-14. So, in the playoffs, the Eastern Conference, the number one seed was the Oakland Magic, who had title advantage. Number 2 was Miami. Number 3 was Minnesota. Number 4 was Buffalo. Number 5 was Detroit. And number 6 was Utah. In the Western Conference, the number 1 seed was Philadelphia. Number 2 was New Orleans. Number 3 was Lubbock. Number 4 was Kansas. Number 5 was New York. And last up was Columbia. And here is the stats for 2022, as passing, Brandon Salinas for Miami led the league in passing yards, throwing just short of 5,000 yards, which he almost fell short of last year as well. As passing was down a bit this year. Rushing yards, Denver's Sean Dort continues to play really good after leaving Indiana, as put up a lot of yards, but didn't get a lot of touchdowns in his probably Hall of Fame career. And passing touchdowns, of course, Salinas, like I said, with Miami, had 51 touchdowns as he torched everyone in that regard. He almost doubled who was second place. Actually, no, he did double whoever was top 10. My gosh, he just had a dominant year. And Columbia's tight end, David Salazar, once again had another incredible year, probably the best tight end in the league in his Hall of Fame career, as he had over 1,900 yards and 14 touchdowns. And of course, tackles goes to Timothy Schultz of Los Angeles, that he had 208 tackles, and he also had 5 sacks and a pick. Speaking of sacks and interceptions, the leader in sacks, I see sacks went down this year as Green Bay's George Galvans led the league with 39 sacks, Just 2 years ago, he had 63 sacks. Yeah, sacks have gone down a lot. But instead, interceptions massively went up this year as Indiana's free safety Xavier Walker led the league with 19 interceptions. He's had 4 seasons now where he had 10 or more interceptions. This one is even more than last year. As you can see, there are 10 secondary players with 10 or more interceptions. It's just insane. Absolutely insane. It's going to take a long time before this is fixed, where defenders are not put up these ridiculous stats that make QBs and other offenses look terrible. And you can see, too, in the passer rating, only 2 quarterbacks had a QBR of over 100. 10th place was just a QBR of 82.3. That is mid, and that's in top 10. That's just sad. Alright, and then we get to the playoffs. As start off with Detroit going to Buffalo. As early for most of the game until the third quarter, the game was tied up until Detroit in the fourth quarter exploded, scored 21 unanswered points to win the game 35-18 to get their first win, I think, in the playoffs. Then it was Columbia Lubbock in a rematch from last year where Lubbock destroyed Columbia. Not this time around, as Columbia obliterated Lubbock in the rematch 31-7 to move on to the division round to face their arch rival Philadelphia. Then it would be Utah visiting Minnesota, and Minnesota would spank Utah 20-7, as they would have to go on to visit Miami, and Detroit would have to visit Oakland. And then the wrap up the wild card round would be New York visiting Kansas, and the game early on, Kansas was actually leading New York going into the fourth quarter, but after that, New York dominated the fourth quarter, scoring 19 unanswered points, and they won the game 36-21. Then in the divisional round, it started off with Minnesota visiting Miami in a very competitive game going to the fourth quarter. They were both tied at 21, but then Miami scored the final 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to win 35-21. Then it was New York visiting New Orleans, and a defensive effort. New York beat New Orleans 14-9 as New Orleans went 1 and done in the playoffs for the 3rd year in a row as New York made the conference championship once again. And then the big matchup as Columbia visited Philadelphia. We were expecting a high-scoring offensive game, but nope. It was mostly defense as both quarterbacks played terrible, as Philadelphia won 23-13 to make the conference championship. And then it was Detroit visiting Oakland. Detroit scored a field goal to start the game, and then they got obliterated 62-3, allowing 62 unanswered points. Even it got so bad at Oakland benched their quarterback, and their backup threw 3 touchdowns as well. Just a complete obliteration as Oakland dominated and moved on to the conference championship for the 2nd year in a row. Then the conference championships, another arch rivalry, as New York visited Philadelphia, and Philadelphia beat New York 21-10 in a defensive struggle to make the UFL title game for the 3rd time in franchise history as they set the record for the most appearances. And then they would have to face either Miami or Oakland, as it was unfortunately a blowout for Oakland at first. Going into the fourth quarter, the Magic was up 28-7. Miami, despite not playing bad offensively, had an explosion in the fourth quarter, scored 18 unanswered points to make it within 3 points, but they couldn't make the comeback official. Oakland held on to win 28-25 as they were going to the title game for the 2nd year in a row. They became the first team to make the UFL title game back in consecutive years, and they were hosting it. So, the 2022 UFL title game, Philadelphia at Oakland. The 3rd time Philadelphia's in the title game, 1st time they're on the road, as Oakland is 1st time hosting it. As Philadelphia, for most of the game, led. They were doing a pretty good job holding down Oakland. They had a 23-14 lead at one point, but it would not last as Oakland rallied afterwards, scored 21 unanswered points, and they held on to win 35-26. They became the first team to win back-to-back UFL titles, and they tie Philadelphia for the most titles in UFL history. Both of them now have 2. As Oakland played very good, Philadelphia, their quarterback, Jason Bartlett, threw 3 interceptions, which really hurt. But they still played very competitive, but they just couldn't get the job done as Oakland's done it. They are champions once again. And that, guys, is how the 2022 UFL season ended. hope you all enjoyed, and congratulations to Oakland for once again being the UFL champions, as they so far are becoming the team of the 2020s, just like Philadelphia was the team of the 2010s. So yeah, guys, hope you all enjoyed, and see you all next time in 2023.